Okay, let's see it. All right, bro. New hero, new rules, new rivals. Oh, they're starting with the trailer.
You sure you want to do this, big one?
Quality is buns.
Bestowed a title upon me, child. I have upheld their celestial mission for millennia now.
This quality is buns on YouTube. I might hit switch.
But when timelines began to collapse, the gods shed their facades.
Let me see if the quality is better on Twitch.
Scrambling like dogs.
Yeah, I think it is better on
the
Twitch.
end of all that is. Human.
This quality, yeah.
Believing they could survive the devastation as well.
Oh, Spider-Man is dead. Let's go.
The future is in the hands of mutant kind.
Let's fucking go.
Gods must fight.
Finally, I don't have to fucking play no more. My fucking supporters don't have to beg me to play no more. They fucking killed his ass.
Should be chosen to stand among them.
Let's fucking go.
And from those deemed
They finally killed his ass.
I shall acquire the power to transcend.
Look, Jubilee. Who the fuck is this? This big ass.
The seven lights shall guide the way.
Yeah, I wish this guy was a tank. He look busted. Who the hell is this?
Name of apocalypse, the world shall be.
He a cinematic character. Oh.
Mutants.
Who the fuck killed him? Damn.
No one beats the hood.
The hood. Oh shit. Cool. Who the fuck? What? 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 What the? What? No, bro. Why? 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 Another timer is ridiculous. What? Why? What is the point? What? Wait, what is the point? That's 3 timers now. What was the point of me running ads then? If it's just gonna, oh my God, there was no point. Jubilee looks good though, but what was the fucking point? That's not how you run a live stream. That's not how you, what? What was the point of this being live if we're gonna have to wait anyway? That's not, I've never seen a live stream do that for a game. That's like watching a Nintendo Direct or something, or a PlayStation Showcase, and then they show like Wolverine, and then they say, wait 5 minutes, we'll show God of War or something next. And like, or give you a fucking timer. That doesn't make any sense. I mean, I understand it's their first stream, but like, why would you do this? What? I am so confused. What? Do we like what? I've never seen somebody do this. Yeah, it's Hood and Jubilee. Hood is in the back right there. Jubilee's right here. Also, who stabbed bro? Who done it? Because what the fuck was that? Bro got murked.
No one beats the hood.
He was aura farming. He got fucking stabbed.
In the name of apocalypse, the world shall be.
Whose sword is that? It's like a blade. It kind of looks like Blade's sword, but not really. I think it's too skinny. The Hood? The Hood has swords? I know he has like fucking guns and like portals and shit. I don't think that was Hood. I don't think that was Hood. Hood doesn't have a sword, does he?
Mutants, gods, Nidal.
Yeah, it might have been. I mean, he peers next, so.
No one beats the Hood.
I don't think the Hood doesn't have a sword. Hood doesn't have a sword. He uses dual guns. He doesn't have a sword. He doesn't have a sword. Yeah, he's known for having dual guns and like portals and magic and shit. And he can teleport and stuff. He doesn't have a sword. That's got to be a teaser of a future character. Gore the God Killer. It has to be a teaser of a different character. We're probably going to see more than, like, I don't fucking know. That has to be a teaser of a future character. Search up Gore. Hold on, this shit's about to show another thing. Oh, 1 minute. Who the fuck is this? Yeah, a blade that skinny. Yeah, it looks like something like that. I don't think that was Blade's sword. It can't be. That was too skinny. Yeah, this fits. Yeah, this would fit. What's with this Egyptian ass theme we're getting? Sheesh. Gotta be Gore. Yeah, I think that's Gore. Cause that can't be Blade. That sword was way too skinny, bro. Blade's 19 is way bigger than that. I would know. Believe me. Shit. All right, next review. Let's see it. Oh, hell no. Oh, no. Oh, no.
Hello, everyone. Double G here.
Oh, no, bro. I gotta
all
see
to
Z Young
season 9 of
next.
Marvel Rivals.
Oh, shit.
This time, let's first welcome Zhiyong to introduce some
Fucking
updates.
blood. My fucking.
Hey, Rebels,
oh,
it's
no,
Zhiyong. I'm here to walk you through all the
The
very
blood
exciting
pressure
developments
instantly
we are making on the
skyrockets.
Balance team.
Okay, Black Widow's getting reworked.
Let's first tackle a pretty challenging topic, Black Widow.
Really isn't challenging,
Looking
bro.
at past seasons, her combat performance has indeed lacked competitiveness.
Oh my god, look at Jubilee.
We've tried a few adjustments here and there.
Fuck the Widow. Hold on.
but
Look
with
at Jubilee in the back. Damn.
The reason being there's a
good.
primary conflict we've never quite been able to resolve. The long-range one-shot KO capability.
No, we do
of
not
a
need a
standard
one-shot,
sniper
bro.
rifle
We don't need a Widowmaker
juxtaposed
equivalent.
against the counterplay experience for other heroes
not fun to
facing
fight, just
that
rework it.
capability. These two aspects are very hard to balance. Through many internal discussions,
It's funny
we've
because
always
Zaza
opted
doesn't
to
want a Widow.
prioritize
We work.
maintaining her established play experience. For those that have
Increase the volume?
grown
It's
to
already
love
pretty
her
high.
rather than completely redo her, and alienate those that
And?
love her established
Oh, no,
play
no,
style.
no. It's gonna. She
However,
needs a rework.
The core
Zaza's
issue
wrong.
then remains. So this time, we are attempting to rework her combat loop and truly usher in a new glorious aura for the Black Widow. Here's a brief overview of our approach to these adjustments. First, we've removed the ADS sniper mode from her standard
It's gone?
state and increased the fire rate
what
of
the
her primary attack. At the same time,
What?
we've moved the charged electrical plasma blast from her original ultimate to be normally available, hitting enemies with this deals damage and
That's cool.
applies a slow effect.
They're not vulnerable.
With
That damage
this
looks
adjustment,
insane, though.
On one hand, we no longer need to stress over the one-shot KO issue.
Good,
of a normal
good,
snipe,
good. So she's a normal
allowing
character
us
now.
to implement responsible baseline stats.
Yo, nerf her kick, bro.
On
Get
the
that
other
kick
hand,
out of here.
We hope this gives Black Widow more stable, consistent
Wait,
DPS.
what about her? Can
raising
she
her
run
base
infinitely like
damage
Cap now?
floor so more players can pick her up. Secondly, we've transformed her ultimate ability into her ADS sniper mode, which will last for a set
Oh my
duration
god, is it like
or
Destiny
until
Golden
a
Gun?
certain number of bullets
Oh
are fired.
shit, it is.
Again,
Okay, that's pretty
prioritizing the
sick.
counterplay experience.
That's pretty sick.
We
That's
still
pretty
haven't
sick.
given her the ability
doesn't
to
one-shot, though.
one-shot on critical hits.
Okay, good.
However, as power compensation,
What does it do, though?
drastically increased the hit
Oh, her
rock
bullets are
twice of her
huge,
sniper
though.
bullets, and they can now pierce straight through
That's pretty
enemies.
sick. That's sick.
Crucially, non-critical hits will also deal incredibly high damage, completely shredding any damage fall off at range.
Does it do percent damage or?
The ultimate goal here
Will it
is
shred
to
tanks?
preserve that pure sniping experience for players
Yeah,
who love
I'm
it,
fine with that. But
while
like,
using the framework
just don't
of
let her
an
one-shot
ultimate
headshot.
to
That shit
grant
is
it
not
the
fun.
immense, devastating power it deserves. Finally, with retained Black Widow Spring
she can
and
run
Super
infinitely like
Jump,
Cap now.
entirely removing their stamina
It was stupid.
restrictions.
She had a restriction
Her
anyway.
spinning kick will also stay, and we've introduced a brand new ability.
Wait, the spinning kick is still
When
broken.
Black
Then
Widow
what?
is airborne, she can launch
Oh, but
towards
she doesn't
the
do that much
target
damage, though.
location and slam her Widow Spike gauntlets down, dealing
She's a
AoE
dive
damage
kick.
to nearby enemies.
Wait,
Our
okay, the
vision
kick
here
needs to get
is
nerfed then,
make
no?
Black Widow's close quarters melee combos flow much more seamlessly, handing her some serious aggressive burst capability.
Cool.
Overall, we
Wait, I'm
hope these
scared about the
adjustments
kick
will
though. The
make
kick
Black
is so
Widow a highly
broken.
competitive
Because even if you
flanking
iframe the kick
you
part,
can
she
experience
can still
all the
tether you. It's so
details for
stupid.
yourself once the update goes live. Let's look forward to
We're
her
gonna try it out
performance in the
today.
new
We
season.
got test server after this. We're gonna try out test server in like 2 hours. We gotta let all the people that got sponsored to play first
Now,
though.
let's chat about the dynamic changes to team up abilities in the new season.
Shit, ads are gonna run. Let me snooze them. I'm snoozing ads.
Hawk infuses ranging gamma energy
Hulk
into a
first?
massive metallic broad
What?
by Magneto, granting Magneto to an
His
all-new
team with
ability,
with
Gamma
Gambit is
Blade.
gone.
Once activated, he can launch the Colossal Gamma infused
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Upon hitting the
But isn't that kind of
enemy
like the
or
same as the Gambit team
environment,
up though?
It triggered a chain of violent explosions, dealing massive damage to all
A
enemies
chain
in the
of
area.
explosion. Wait, what?
Hawk also
What?
infuses gamma energy into
I'm writing this
the
down.
Landshark's
I'm writing down
driver
character names to
splash.
check on.
Upon activation, just splits out a stream of glowing green gamma water, continuously watering an ally
What
with
the
it.
fuck?
Will directly mutate them into a team-up anchor.
Ew.
Wait a minute. I think I grabbed the wrong script. Let's try that again.
Oh my god. Overhaul. Wait, what?
Now, let's officially talk about epic evolution of team-up abilities.
What? So wait, so they're gonna justify that the team has been lackluster lately?
The team-up abilities brought an entirely new,
Some of them
deeply Marvel
they've been
gameplay
lackluster. They've been
experience to
slacking.
Marvel rivals. Since launch, they've mostly received immense praise for all of you.
I don't know about that.
Especially during the first
Yeah.
year.
Yes. Okay. That
As
I know.
we've continued to operate.
At first
and
it was
update
peak,
again,
and then after it just
we've
slowly
always
dwindled.
kept a close eye on the community's discussion regarding team ups. Things like hoping certain fun team ups stay around forever, wanting everyone to have an
Yeah, so
active
get rid of Helen
team-up
more. It's not
ability,
fun.
wishing team up sync up better with space abilities,
That-
and begging for Hawk and Clock and Dagger to not always just be in anchor gel.
True.
During the team up update process each season, as the sheer number of abilities grew, our dev team gradually started feeling the strain. Some of the newer team ups started feeling
Oh
a
my
bit
god, they're actually
uninspired,
listening. Wow.
existing just for the sake of ticking off an update box.
Oh my god,
Once
they're
we
actually
realized
listening.
this, we decided it was time to absolutely revolutionize the team up system.
It's we've been saying this for how many months now? Oh my god, they're actually listening.
Now, every single hero will possess two completely independent team-up ability loadouts. The ability granted by these loadouts vary.
Loadouts?
Some are entirely new standalone
What?
abilities,
Every character?
while others replace an existing base ability.
Replace a bit.
But either way,
What?
they will grant the hero a fresh,
Whoa,
far
this
more
update is
engaging combat
crazy.
experience. Players can pre-select one of these
What?
team-up loadouts
What the
outside
fuck?
the match based on their preferred playstyle and utilize it in-game. If a player wants to
No
swap
way.
to their
BP?
other team-up loadout mid-match,
BP?
they can do so freely in
He has
the
one with
spawn
Magic
room.
and Storm?
Every team
What is
up
that?
loadout
Life,
will
did you-
feature
what was
a base
that?
effect and an
Yo, where's
enhanced
Samsung?
effect.
Did you see that?
The base effect primarily dictates the fundamental
What
form
was
of the
that?
team-up ability, including its controls,
Yeah, you can see this
control
going crazy, like,
mechanics,
what the
and
fuck is
visual
that?
presentation. This base
has
effect
one
will
magic
be
and
active
Storm?
regardless of whether
I'm running
any
it, I gotta
team-up
check
ability
that.
partner is on your team.
Wait,
The
something's
enhanced
huge.
effect, on the other hand, mostly acts as a powerful buff to the base effect, though a few will offer additional
What?
ability variations. The enhanced effect requires
God,
the
this update is
team-up
crazy.
member
This
to be
update seems
actively
crazy so
playing
far.
the match to activate. Let's use an example to illustrate. Hawk has two distinct team-up loadouts, and players can choose one of the following to use in battle.
What?
Inspired by Captain America's
Loadouts?
unyielding spirit, Hawk becomes an absolute
This shit better be
immovable
so
force in
broken.
combat.
There's gonna be at least like 5 characters that have
This
some
base
crazy ass
effect
busted
has a new
shit.
active ability. When used directly, Hawk leaps straight up and violently slams the ground, dealing AoE damage to nearby
What the
enemies.
fuck?
He can also activate this ability mid-air during Incredible Leap, triggering the
I'm
same
snoozing the
ground
fuck out of
slam
ads right now.
effect on landing.
I don't want my heads to run during
Following the
this.
slam, embodying Cap's never surrenders attitude, Hawk erupts in the face of adversity. All his normal ability cooldowns are reduced based on his current remaining health. The lower his health drops, the greater the cooldown reduction.
What
Hawk
the
gets
hell?
this ability and effect regardless of whether Captain America is actively on
Oh
the team.
wow, that's crazy.
Now, let's look at
Even
the
if Cap
enhanced
isn't there, he
effect.
still gets it.
Building on the base effect, the slam deals even higher damage.
Yo, every
while also
character has
breaking
some
the
crazy
enemy's will
shit.
to fight.
Everyone has a
Applying
team up now,
debuff
yeah.
that increases the
Everybody.
damage
Oh my
they
god, I don't
take.
have to use that annoying
This
ass
effect
Psylocke team up
only
anymore.
activates if Captain America is on the team.
Fastball special is gone or
For his
what?
second loadout,
Does he still get?
Warfarin's Rage awakens Hawk's inner violence, making him more aggressive in
What the
battle.
fuck is
This
this?
base effect adds a new active
What the
ability
fuck
that,
is this?
when used,
Dude, there's gonna be so much
sends
shit to
Hawk
ban.
into a furious
Oh
state,
hell no!
instantly buffing his move
What?
speed and attack speed.
Wait, that's
It
gotta be
also adds
broken,
a
no?
new passive ability
What
where,
is that?
upon jumping below a certain health threshold, Hawk enters an unstoppable state fueled by
Unstoppable?
sheer rage.
Yo, this update
Granting
is
him
insane.
full CC immunity.
Wait, I'm not even
Again,
clip
Hawk
farming.
gets
This
ability
update is
in
crazy.
effect
This
regardless
update is
of
crazy.
whether
I'm not even
Warfarin
clip
is
farming,
on
bro.
the
This
team.
shit is ridiculous.
Now, for his enhanced
This
effect,
update is OD,
when
bro.
Warfarin and Hawk are in the same lineup, Hawk can throw Warfarin forward. At the same time, Warfarin triggers Basca Crawl Strike while Hawk enters the Furious state. This Furious fastball
activates
special
his Fury
is
state when he
completely
throws fastballs.
independent
Oh my
of the
god.
base active ability,
Dude, that attack
meaning
speed is
Hawk
insane.
effectively gets
Yo,
two
this is a
chances
casual game.
to
Proceed is
actively
cooked, bro.
trigger his
There's gonna be
Furious
too much
state.
shit to ban, no?
Again, this effect only activates if Warfarin
Shit,
is
we
on
gonna
the
be
team.
begging for triple heal after this. What the fuck? So much damage. Wait, is
Taking
it really
community
everyone that
feedback to
has
heart,
it?
we
Everyone
come
has
through
it
every
now?
single team-up ability released since launch, and cherry-pick the absolute most fun.
Can I get the blade one removed?
Retrofitting them into the new team-up system structure. So in season 9,
Based on
players will
yeah.
get to see the
We're gonna be
return of
banning
some
based on
classic
team-ups now.
team-ups, such as Metallic
That's
Chaos
so hard to do. Whoa.
and Ammo Overload.
No.
Of course, we've also designed a ton of incredibly fun, entirely new team-up abilities. For example,
back.
Venom will receive the cosmic blessing of the Phoenix Force.
back.
He gains a
Why
new
is that
active
back?
ability that, when activated,
Yo, Punisher's gonna be
raises
getting
his
100k damage per
simultaneous
match.
in Cosmic Phoenix Flames, swapping out his primary attack for a fiery
Wait, that's
Tenju
sick.
that aggressively sweeps
What?
the area in front of him.
What is this
When
game
Venom
now?
and Phoenix team up on the field, the Phoenix Force
Nah,
that
this
Venom
update is
wields
crazy. This
heavy
update is
bound.
crazy,
Every
bro.
hit from his
This update is crazy, bro.
Apply a spark stack to enemies. Reach 3 stacks
He has
and
Phoenix
vitally
passive
detonate,
on Venom.
dealing massive extra
What the
damage.
fuck is this update?
For the sake of
What?
time,
We're cooked.
we
We're
won't
so
showcase
cooked.
every
We are
single new
so
team
cooked.
up here.
We
You can
are
jump in
so
and
fucking
explore
cooked,
them
bro.
all for
He
yourself
has
once
Phoenix
season
passive
9
on Venom
launches.
tendrils. What?
Moving forward,
I don't even know what
we
to
won't
say.
be constantly shuffling around and adding team-up combination every single season like before.
What?
Instead, we will focus heavily on the macro performance of the team-up system as a whole, optimizing and balancing the ones that are underperformance. And of course, for any newly added heroes,
This game is
we
so
will deeply
funny.
design them to ensure they launch with completely fun and useful team-up loadouts. This team-up system update is easily the most massive overhaul we've done to the
This
Combat
update is
system since
bonkers,
launch.
bro.
And it's going to shake up the meta in unprecedented
Everybody got
ways.
changed. Every fucking
Furthermore,
character has
the
some
new
shit.
team-up roster includes a good amount of cross-role synergies. For example, some Vanguards and Deerits will be able to output healing, while some Deerits and strategies can provide incredible survival utility. Strategies that traditionally lack burst healing will gain potent baseline healing capabilities, and strategies lacking aggressive utility will secure stronger initiation of healing tools.
Yeah, this
The
update.
new team-up system radically shatters the established capability boundaries of the heroes, cracking team comp possibilities wide open.
Wait,
We can't wait to
what?
see what team compositions you make food of.
Why is her
enhanced
fucking
heroes
hand
and
green?
villains. Furthermore,
Why is
the
Phoenix's
team-up
hand
anchor
green?
mechanic from the previous
Blade of support.
system
Wait, what the
has
fuck
been
did I miss? What did he
completely
say?
scrapped in this update, alongside its corresponding
Wait, what did he
flanking
say?
buffs. As a
Wait,
result,
what did
we
it
will
say?
be slowly re-evaluating the
Why y'all
rosters
saying Blade
of
heal
those
me?
specific heroes as well as some
DPS
others.
and tanks.
We are stepping into season
that's
9
rage
with
bait.
a just plan
I'm
from
not believing
season
that.
8.5's dominant overperformance, like Cyclops and Rocket Raccoon, while significantly buffing underperformers like Thor, The Thing, Black Cat, and Storm,
Storm buffs. Okay,
bringing
cool.
their lethality and utility back up to par.
Can we give?
Altogether,
What's the
this
name of her
balance
second?
pass touches roughly 80% of our
Oh my
entire hero
God.
roster. Because the list of all these tricks is so massive, I won't read them out here. You can dig into the hub numbers in the balance.
Oh my
post
God, that's gonna be a
releasing shortly
fucking.
after this video.
Oh my God, that's. I'm just gonna take me 10 years to read. It's gonna take me 10 years to read. I'm reading every
Beyond
single
tweaking
character.
the heroes themselves,
I'm reading every single character.
Season
That's gonna take me so long to
9.0
read.
introduces two massive global system changes.
It's not letting me snooze ads,
First
by the
off,
way. So
the
I'm
brand
sorry if
new
you get
team-up
ad.
system
I think I ran out of
inevitably
snoozes.
introduces way more numerical variables into the mix. Team
said
fights
they're-
are going to be infinitely
Do
more
DPS yourself heals
chaotic
the ability to
and
heal teammates?
hyper-aggressive.
Okay.
We found in playtesting that this consistently led to ultimate abilities chaining
So
together
blue life not enough. They want them to heal
far
themselves
too
now.
frequently and
Oh, it's
snowballing
probably-
matches prematurely.
I'll talk about it after this.
So, after exhaustive testing, we've decided to further nerf the overall energy acquisition
Again?
rate for ultimate abilities. Post-nerf, the average time to earn an ultimate
Again?
will feel
Oh, wow.
nearly identical to how
Oh,
they
merchants
played
are
in recent
cooked.
patches. Secondly, we are adding an entirely new health mechanic to the game, regenerative shields.
Oh my God, I was right.
Regenerative shields function under the exact
That's the
same
green health
logic
shit.
as base health.
I assume if
Any
by the
mechanic
way
that
they mean
calculates
they
all
want
base health,
DPSs to
like
heal is that passive healing out of
percentage-based
combat,
healing
like
or
Overwatch.
percentage-based damage, treats regenerative shields exactly as if it were regular
Oh,
health.
whoa, what
But
the
here is
fuck?
the difference. If a
Never mind, it's
hero
not the
managed
same.
to completely avoid taking damage for 5 solid
You
seconds,
passively heal?
their regenerative
Oh, yeah, I
shields
was right.
will
Okay.
automatically kick
Yeah,
in,
it's just passive healing out of
rapidly
combat.
recharging to full capacity.
Or wait,
over
no,
the
this
next
one's in
5
combat or
seconds.
both or some shit?
For instance, if a hero
Wait,
has
so if I'm
300
dodging for 5
regenerative
minutes,
shields,
if I'm just
it will
weaving
rebuild
like
at
fucking
60%.
Daredevil for 5 seconds, I
If
start to
they
heal.
have 150, it builds at 30 per second.
Yeah, that's a
We
buff
are
to dive.
strictly adding
That's a dive
regenerative
buff.
shields to
That's a
high
dive buff.
mobility
That is a
heroes
dive
who
buff.
excel at flanking
Let's
and
fucking
diving.
go. That's a dive buff.
This new health type massively
Yeah, stalling
buffs
is
the
gonna be annoying
baseline
though, but
mistake
that's a dive buff.
forgiveness Of these hypermobile
If you're like
characters
sitting in the back line, you don't have to
during
just
solo
die.
or
You can just
angle
reset. I mean, you can
duels,
just heal and then go back into the fight.
significantly reducing the downtime before they
Venom,
can
that's a
jump
good
back
buff for
into
Venom
the
too.
fray.
Yeah.
Simultaneously,
It might have to be
this
10
cuts
seconds,
down on
though.
the sheer
5,
number
but
of
we'll see.
teammates a strategist has to constantly monitor, heavily alleviating overall team healing pressure. Realistically
I ran out of
speaking,
snoozes. Uh-oh.
accurately predicting the
You guys
exact
might get an
matchup
ad, but it's
strengths
gonna be a
of
short
every
one.
team-up
I ran out of
combination
snoozes.
with
You only get
the
3 an hour.
addition of regenerative shields is going to be extremely challenging right out of the gate.
Yeah, it's gonna be hard to balance
Plus,
this.
the
Okay, so the next patch might just be
generated by
fucked,
different team
but
up
you're gonna slowly
synergies
tweak it. That's fine.
With new team compositions will undoubtedly perform entirely differently across
Okay,
various
so
levels
we got what
of
we
play.
wanted. The meta's about to change completely.
Therefore, the overarching philosophy for the Season 9.0 patch is supporting a stable and smooth transition into this entirely new
I mean, yeah, most of you guys
era
are sub. We're doing a
of
sub with them
Marvel
anyway.
Rivals gameplay. As we plug into this radical new season, we will be constantly monitoring
Yo, thanks
the
for the sub.
moment-to-moment
Those-
experience of the new team ups and tracking the meta closely across all competitive brackets. If things break, we won't hesitate to step in with rapid hotfixes or patches. If you guys run into any rough spots,
They're gonna
please
do a-
give us your feedback.
Okay, yeah, they're gonna do a hot fix. If
Plus,
something is
the
crazy
upcoming
broken, they'll do a
next
hot
season
fix.
Finals will be played on the Season 9 patch, featuring the brand new
Oh
team
shit,
up system.
MRI is
We
about to be on this new
absolutely
patch.
can't wait to see the incredible plays our pros are
Yo,
going
this
to
patch
pull
is
off.
about to be fucking
Ignite the
crazy,
battle.
bro. This
As
patch
you
is
just
about
saw,
to be
This
fucking
summer, we are
crazy.
rolling out a truly massive new update. This isn't just about tweaking a few team-up abilities or adjusting the anchors. It's a systemic, full roster, ground-up rework that will bring an incredibly fresh and fun dynamic to combat. And of course, in Season 9, Black Widow will also receive a major rework.
Damn.
But that's not all. A new season means highly
Oh, that is a buff to
anticipated
Deadpool. You're
new
right.
heroes.
Because this whole passive healing. Yeah, you're right. Or maybe it just won't work with him.
Grab your shades.
Strategist!
Bringing her
No, I'm joking.
to Marvel Rivals in Season 9.
Is it good? They're
Jubilee
gifted things
is
in
a
effect, yeah.
strategist, a lovely manipulator of fireworks.
Wait, he's talking about
who
for-
can control
oh,
vibrant
shit, she looks
energy
cool.
plasmoids
She got
in
balls
combat
floating, some yellow
to
ball
kill her
thingies.
teammates, while simultaneously damaging and
Blinding.
blinding
Oh
enemies.
no, please don't
And
flashbang
for
me
the
though.
grand final, her ultimate ability unleashes a lethal, dazzling fireworks show
just shake
across
ass?
the battlefield. This season, we are also turning our sights to the collapse timeline. As the very first mutant in the collapse timeline, Apocalypse personally witnessed the world burn to ashes in the crossfire of the War of the Gods. In the eyes of this evolutionary
I will say the live stream
arbiter,
format is more
the
hype
space
than
that
slowly
needed
dropping
to
it throughout
be
the day.
called was no
But I hate the
longer
wait
frail
timing though.
humanity,
But whatever, I
but
suppose.
rather the very gods
If it's a wait
that
time
had
after this
built
video,
the
I don't
world.
mind because this is a lot of info they just
However,
dropped.
Just as Apocalypse was absorbing the
Yo,
fate
Lewis,
of
thanks for the
audio
30 gifted, bro.
attempting to ascend to
Fucking hell,
godhood
fine, I'll change
and
to
reshape
expert.
The order of the collapsed universe. A mysterious assassin pierced his chest. When the heroes arrive in Thebes to investigate the death of Apocalypse, they hit a dead end, only for 3 deeply mysterious murders to
Spin
occur
the wheel
sequentially
too. I'll do it after
entirely
this.
within their own ranks, casting an even more impenetrable shadow over the entire incident.
He didn't want to spend money on
Dive
Fate.
into this mystery, we prepared an interactive Death of Apocalypse.
Yeah, I can't snooze ads, it won't let me.
We invite everyone to sift through the endless lies.
Yo, can they hurry up and end?
uncover the one
My ads are about to run, I think.
Our brand new convoy
Oh, it's a new map.
Thebes will officially go live following the update on July 23rd.
23rd? Okay.
Stay tuned.
That's pretty soon. We're getting a new map, nice. New convoy map. When was the last time we got a convoy map?
Following the update on July 30th,
Oh, I guess it
our
was
brand new game mode,
what's his
Path
name's
to
map?
Doomsday, Avengers, Age
Fisk.
of Ultron, will take everyone straight into Avengers Tower and Ultron's data space to battle Ultron and his
That fucking map
mechanical
sucks.
army. At the same
That's
time,
Convergence?
we'll
Which one's
be
Convoy?
launching
Oh,
a
Convoy's the one where you
series
just
of
automatically
events
deliver the
in
payload.
Times
Whoops.
Square lobby. So look forward to that.
Payload's already spawned in.
In Season 9, very fast
Yeah, it was
college
Museum.
students
Museum was the last
will
one.
get access to a new location of 10
Oh, my
copies
Blade
and
skin's in there.
MVPs. We welcome all
World
college
Cutter?
students to verify their university email to unlock this exclusive.
Oh, it's
benefits.
Tokon Beta Day? Okay, it's just a new map. That's not that bad. That's not that bad. It's just a new map. And Tokon's probably gonna be at midnight.
From July 29th to August
Or past
1st,
midnight or something. I don't know.
the Marvel Rivals Ignite Series
Shit.
mid-season finals
Avatars.
will be taking over Los Angeles.
No, that's not
USA.
Tokon. That's Avatar
10
Day.
top teams from our
Tokon is
four
the
major
24th.
global regions will battle it out on stage, competing for the
Damn.
very first World Championship title.
Ooh, so
of
much
the
shit.
competitive year.
I mean, good thing I'm doing a
With
subathon. We have a lot of games to
absolutely
play.
for you all to come out and experience
So much gaming.
the
Not enough
hype life.
time.
For more
I mean, with this amount of time I have on this timer, maybe
please
there
keep
is
an
enough
eye
time.
on our social media channels. We have been holding our
Yeah, today's stream gonna be long. This is gonna be a long ass stream, bro. Because we're playing test server today. The season 9 shit we're looking at, we're playing this today.
We actually started
But, like, this is gonna be a long
planning
stream.
our overhaul just under a year ago. Over the last few seasons, we've been
Oh, I'm gonna have to
closely
drop my Jubilee
following
video
the
today.
community's
Shit, I'm gonna need a
discussions
Jubilee thumbnail. I'm about to
regarding
make
team
that.
ups. And honestly, the pressure has been immense, especially over the past 2 seasons.
Damn, they are
Right
not
before
slowing
we
down,
fully
bro.
carried that vision, Zhiyong and I would debate. Should we just test the overhaul now? We thought dropping the news early might alleviate some of the pressure.
Bro,
from
you
the
guys dropped all this shit all at the same time.
every time, we ultimately decided not to. We wanted to be completely responsible.
Wow.
To only announce it once we had successfully built it, run the tests, and thoroughly verified the
I mean, the only
gameplay
teaser we get is like the
experience
card art
ourselves.
at the end of Battle Pass.
That's always been our style.
Speaking of
So,
Battle
the
Pass, we
time
haven't
is
seen it
now.
yet.
Grab your friends and jump into what is easily
This is the absolute biggest Rivals
to
update.
Marvel Rivals since the game launched.
This is the absolute biggest
Ignite
Rivals
battle.
update ever. Yeah. Holy shit, I'm gonna be in the... Oh my god, I'm gonna be in that practice range for 10 years, bro. Oh my god, I'm gonna be in that practice range for so fucking long, bro. Son, I'm gonna be in that practice range for so fucking long, bro. Oh, move the chat real quick. You fucking gooner. Dude. When I do these, let me check the second channel. When I do these, I'm in the practice range for like even a small patch for an hour. Oh my god, I'm gonna be in that shit for so fucking long, bro. Bro, me looking at patch notes was 48 minutes long on 8.5. No, bro, I'm gonna be in there for so long. Oh no, I'm gonna be in that shit for like 3 hours, bro. Every character got a new team up, and there's 2 of them. Every single character. Because everyone has a loadout now. It's not just like, oh, one person gets season buff, and then the person that doesn't have the season buff on the team up gets a team up. No, everyone has a team up now. I don't think season buff is even a thing anymore. We don't fucking know. Season buff is probably just gone. I think season buff is probably just deleted. But if season buff is deleted, those characters that had season buffs are probably gonna need buffs. But I mean, I guess that's what the buff is. They're fucking, they're team ups. Everyone has a team up now. They got rid of anchor buffs. Yeah, I think those are just gone. I think anchor buffs are just flat out deleted. Everyone has 2 team ups now. Everyone has like a loadout. If FedEx can get Tekken patches done, we have faith in you. Holy shit. Dude, this is gonna take 10 years, bro. Oh man, I gotta get this shit out today too. So today I have to upload my reaction to all this shit, the Jubilee video, reaction to Jubilee gameplay video. Oh my fucking god, there's so much shit. Okay, let me run ads real quick. Let me run ads before they run. I'm gonna run a 3-minute ad. This is gonna be a long one, so just be back in 3 minutes. Oh my fuck, bro. Yeah, the anchor buffs are stupid anyway. Yeah, because you would still have the buff even if, because unlike team ups, you'd still have the buff even if that person wasn't there. It was unfair as fuck. I already thought that shit was cheese. Jesus Christ, Jubilee's model looks insane, by the way. Holy. Yeah, her model looks fucking good. Damn, her model looks good. This was in the dev vision. This is not a leak. Damn. That did just damn. Oh man. Oh man, this update is fucking fucked, bro. This update is huge as shit, man. I don't even know what to say, bro. I don't even know what to say, man. Do I throw all this stuff in one video? I have to. Like, there's no way I don't. Let me open Photoshop. I gotta start making the thumbnail now. This shit is just too big. It's too fucking big, bro. I don't even know where to start. No, I have to throw all this in one video, bro. I can't make all this shit separate, bro. There's just no way. There's just no way. That's too much thumbnails and that's too much videos, bro. No, bro. There's no way. There's just no fucking way, bro. I'm actually dumbfounded, but dude, every single character has a team up now, and there's 2 of them. So even if you thought you were gonna get shit this update because you're playing a meta character or you're playing a character that gets no love, you got love. Every single character. Now, deciding if that team up is good or not, we don't know. But every single character got to change. Every single fucking character. Like we saw Hulks, and Hulks was crazy. He has faster attack speed, and he has like a ground slam, and he has like some like or no, well, not even just the green life shit is just passive healing for everybody or something like that. But like, I don't even know, bro. That shit is crazy. Like, what is this game now? The hood? Yeah, the hood is up there at the top right. He's right there. If you don't see him. Okay, next batch of news. Let's see this. This is probably Jubilee's trailer. This is probably Jubilee's trailer. Strategist Jubilee.
Clear the way. It's time for the Big Bang. Life energy, yeah.
Oh my god, her attack speed is fast. She has 48 ammo? This map is sick. 48 ammo? Her damage is crazy. It's like the Wanda team up. With Strange?
Let the sparks fly.
Bro, her damage. What is that?
Wow, you suck.
What is her damage?
Tick, tick, boom.
Are they blinded? I mean, they have to be. Oh my. Bro, her damage is insane.
All right, ready to launch. Time for a glow up.
What is that? Oh shit, they're fireworks that. Oh, it's like a fireworks circle. Oh, she's an initiator. Oh, she's an initiator. This is better White Fox. Oh, no. Oh, that looks so annoying. That looks insanely annoying.
Show's over for you.
That looks so annoying. It knocks back and knocks you up. That looks so annoying. What? Is the stream over? Oh. Oh, they have to show her team up. She has 2, no? What? It's with the hood? Wait, is that a spoiler? Hood is dropping then, no? Wait, what? Wait, we're getting 2 characters at launch. Wait, no. Wait, what the fuck, Blade? What the? No. Why does she have a team with the hood if hood is not even in the game yet? Blade upgrade. She has life. Oh my god. No, that's a spoiler then, no? That means hood is playable this update. No, it said the hood. No, that's not Cyclops. It said the hood, bro. No, no, bro. That shit said with the hood. It said hood, bro. It said Moon Knight. Oh, y'all gaslighting. We're about to see hood. We're about to see hood's gameplay. There's no way it would have just said the hood for no reason. It's got to be the hood next. There's no way. It's a 2-character update. Oh. 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 I don't know what I was just talking about, but oh shit. Pretty cool looking skin. Oh shit, on the tightrope. Oh, in the Carter, it was Jubilee. Remember, they said a figure that looks like Emma Frost. Wait, that's Rogue, no? It was Rogue, but in a... Oh. Yeah, it's Rogue. Remember the Carter? It said a figure that looks like Emma or something like that people were talking about. Oh, what the fuck? Oh, that skin looks sick. That skin looks sick. It's a funny skin. That shit looks sick though. Is that effects? Oh, no effects. Goofy ass Adam. Bloodless Berserker. Oh my god, 30 seconds. Wait, no, that shit said hood. I'm not schizo. That shit said the hood. I'm not schizo, bro. I don't care. I'm not schizo. That shit said the hood. It said team up with the hood, and the other team said with Blade. That Deadpool? Elsa. Ooh, oh, it's the battle pass. Cool. Who is that? Who the fuck was that? Man, ooh. Oh my, oh. No comment. Rocket? Is that Venom? Who is that? Namor? Cloak and Dagger? Ew. Mr. Fenty. Oh, it was Ultron. Look at Ultron. Was that Iron Man? Let me go back. That was Iron Man. Did you see that? Ah, shit. I can't go back on fucking... This is Iron Man. This is Venom. Cloak and Dagger. It's not bad. What y'all think about this? That's not bad, right? I like that Elsa skin. We gonna need that. That's for sure. It's alright. It's alright. What? For who? They showed this already. Are we going over every tanks? Or what are we doing? What? Are they about to go over every single tank characters? No way. No way to go over every single tank characters. Shit, maybe I won't have to go over it in game. Well, I mean, I have to because I gotta see the damage numbers and shit.
You got them all.
Warning, keep your live real time. Showing pre-recorded or looped videos. Oh my god, this shit just... Since this shit just showed again... Oh my god, we're looking at Doctor Strange's now. Shit almost shot my TikTok because they showed a clip again.
Power from the one below all.
What is that back? He has one with Invis still? Okay. So he still has this one. The pool.
Bionic magic.
Yeah, TikTok is buns. So what are they showing? Oh, they just showed it twice. Okay. That gives blue life to a teammate? That's much better than the Bucky one.
Reporting for duty.
What? It goes through people. Oh, what? What? Okay, so he has the tree to, like, that gives healing still. Fucking cat. Why is Captain America playing poke? Nah, that shit is crazy, bro. You literally can't ban certain team ups anymore. I don't, bro. Helen Namor better be gone though. What the fuck? You are too big to be doing that. Oh my god, he's immortal. This team up. He has one with Blade? Whoa. So Blade and Jubilee have a team up with Blade. Wow. I mean, it wouldn't matter if Blade's in the game or not, no? I don't think it matters if Blade's in the game or not for these team ups, correct? Since they're loadouts. Yo. Wait, how do you proc the Phoenix Sparks? He was procking Phoenix Sparks in the trailer. Oh, if Phoenix is there, yeah, there you go. Phoenix has to be there. So if Phoenix isn't there, it'll just give you the tendrils. But if Phoenix is there, it'll give you the spark. Oh, he has the Emma Frost Psylocke team up.
You cannot hurt me.
Oh, wait, so the videos aren't the same thing twice. They're the upgraded if the character's actually there. That's pretty sick. I never realized that.
You cannot
Holy
hurt me.
shit. 2 mags? Wait, so this explodes if the team up is upgraded? That shit is so sick, bro. Balancing is cooked, but this shit is sick because definitely some team ups are not gonna be as strong if they're not upgraded. Some team ups are gonna be like broken as shit even without upgrade. Rebirth? Wait, what about the upgraded one then? Does he go to max health?
Battle Fury burn.
Wait, what? What? I don't even know what I just looked at. He exploded into a Namor squid? What? I don't even know what the fuck that just did. Oh my god, she has a way to fight Poke now. If Black Panther's there, it's bigger. Oh my god, she has a way to fight Poke now. Oh no. The nest is back? No! What does this do? Oh, body cams. He has one torch. Oh my god! What is that? What?
Ready as I'll ever be.
Wait, what does it look like upgraded? Nah, I gotta see the upgraded. That's a fucking flame punch wave. What the fuck was that? Wait, I didn't even get the upgraded version. What? I guess the upgraded version is that he can just fly on, Torch can carry him. Oh my god, this is back? It heals, what?
Diamond and snow.
It heals if Invis is there. What? What is this video, bro?
Diamond and snow. Priceless. Bionic siphon.
Bionic Siphon? Spirit Breaker. If it's upgraded, what does it do? Oh, it's huge. The range of it is bigger. What? What is that doing? As Guardians of the Galaxy? That's a pretty cool team up name. Is there dive range further? Oh, it's the... Wait, what the fuck? I don't get it. What? Are you fucking kidding me? It has uses. She has 2 uses of it. What are we smoking? What are we smoking? What are we smoking? Oh my god. What does it do, bro? Upgraded. Does it heal more? Oh, that healing is really good too. This shit is crazy. What? Can he be beaming while doing that? I bet you he can.
They call me the Punisher.
That shit is ridiculous, dog. What the? Oh my god, Jeff can ride him now too. We're going over strategy. Well, they're saving DPS for last because there's so many DPSs. Okay. Ah, it's May! What the fuck? She has May from Overwatch! What? Oh my god! She has May from Overwatch! Oh my god! Oh, you can't dive her! No, she's gonna be undiveable. She's gonna be undiveable. I swear to God, you can't dive Cloak and Dagger anymore. No, that's gotta be broken. That has to be broken. Team with the Hood? Hood is not in the game yet, though. What? We're giving what? Or is he actually in the game already? What? And what? Wait, no, the May one looks so broken. Wait, can you switch team ups mid-match, or does it have to be before the match starts? Wait, no, you have to be able to switch team ups mid-match because you can switch characters anytime. Oh my God. No, that team up is undiveable, no? You have to go through Cloak Bubble and then Fade and then the May shit. And then by the time the May shit's over, you can get Cloak Bubble back. No, that team up looks so broken. What? How are you gonna dive Cloak and Dagger? Fuck the rest of this shit. That team up was broken. What? And wait, would that just blow up? Wait, what?
For my next trick.
Did he just copy the person that he killed? Are you fucking kidding me, bro? Oh my God, Rescomp is back. Oh my God, Rescomp is back. Oh. This game is so cooked. If you're a pro, pack it up. If you are a pro, pack it up, bro. Wait, did she get soulbound? Did she soulbound on Res? If you're a pro, pack it up. I swear to God. If you are a pro, give up, bro. What is this video, bro? What the fuck is this? What did that do for him? That heal him? What does it do? Oh my God, that's a burst heal of doom. Ultron with Penny. He has 3 drones. Wait, isn't it a buff? He has 3 drones on default now. He has 3 drones. What was that for on upgrade? Ultron has 3 drones on default. That was a buff. He has. If Penny's there, he has 4. What is this? What the fuck? He has 3 drones on default now. Does that shit track? What? Oh my God, it boomerangs now. I don't like, who do you ban? Okay, isn't this just the normal shit? With Adam, what does it do?
A nice deep freeze.
What? I don't get it. Wait, was she healing off her M1s? Oh my God, without shift? Okay, that's one of the more tame ones, I'd say. Dude. Wait, what am I looking at? I don't know why I just fucking looked up. Oh, the fart team up's gone. Thank goodness. That shit was ass. That shit was disrespectful, I can't lie. Faster speed. What? Is it collat? Adam can heal with his basics now, or his right click. If it fucking explodes if Ultron's there. What? So the base one is just Venom. Okay, it's the normal shit. But if Venom is there, what does it do? Oh my god, it goes to enemies now. That shit does damage too, bro. But why would you ever be that close to the enemies as Jeff, though? Wait, does it still work while you're underground? Or maybe it still works while you're shifting. Oh, fuck no, bro. What does this do with Deadpool there? It's gigantic. Damages enemies. Okay, that's not that bad. That's one of the more tamer ones compared to the other bullshit they've been showing.
Let's heat it up.
That slows and lowers your attack speed, by the way. It's fire now. Does it burn too? Is that shit 400 health?
Stealth mode.
No way you can attack while invisible. I swear to fucking god. She can make a teammate invisible now. That's insane.
Stealth mode.
If you get shot, it passively heals you? Wait, what? Whoa! What? What is that? Okay, man. It gives the Jubilee explosion thing? What the fuck is that? What is that? What? It just knocks them away, or what else does it do? If Magneto's there, what does it do? Passively heals anyone in a circle next to him, I think. I don't fucking get it. It's cool though. I'm happy they're doing this. I don't have to go in game and show every fucking team up. White Fox and Black Cat. That's the same shit, no? Just that hits enemies now? I don't fucking know. Oh, it's Psylocke. What did that do though? Isn't that just the default? I don't get it. Or is it just bigger? It was definitely way bigger. Oh, he's in the air for longer, I think. I don't know the difference. I think it just does more damage. Jubilee with Blade. We saw this. Lifesteal bullets. She can headshot though. That's the crazy part. Jeez. If Blade is there, a way more lifesteal and a bigger circle healing on the floor. Okay. Just team with the hood as well. Oh my god, it makes them vulnerable. What is that damage, bro? What is that? The fuck is that damage? Did it freeze? I don't know. Is he colliding? His bullets collide. What? That's damage fall off though. Wait, no, it doesn't. It doesn't because those are Groot's. I mean, those are. Oh. Oh, it's not infinite. Wait, it's not infinite. Oh, thank goodness. It's not infinite. It's not infinite. If it's not infinite. Oh my fucking god, it's infinite now. Oh my god, it's infinite if Rocket's there. He just gets that attack speed. If Rocket's there, it's infinite. What the fuck am I looking at? What? Her lightning thing is explode. Oh my gosh, she has chain lightning back again. Wait, this team up is crazy. That's a good storm buff. That's a crazy buff. What the fuck?
Feel the wrath of the goddess!
She's actually using other elements like the fucking. Oh my god, Jeff Nato's back. Jeff Nato's back. Wow. Whoa! He can dive and do this shit then. But that's really small range though. You gotta be really close to your enemy. I mean, but fucking these torches be diving all the time anyway, so that's still good. What is it, bigger? Whoa! Oh, nah. Okay. Yeah, all right, bro. You can throw that and then dive at that spot, and it probably detonates the explosion. Oh, fuck no. Oh, this is back? Yo. Oh, what the fuck? It procs his ult, too. He doesn't have to ult it anymore. What the fuck? What is the damage number? Yeah, all right, bro. I wonder what the damage number is on that. Okay, that's the normal team up. What does it do enhanced? What? Multiple slashes now? What is that? With Hawkeye? What is that? A spread next to him? What was that? I think he shot behind him. Oh, he uses the explosion crossbow. That's not that great. Whack ass team up, bro. Jazz is in base now, bro. This whack ass team up.
A sea of pain.
Why is their ult changing? No! No, bro! No! No, bro! No, bro! No! No, bro! No! No, bro! No! No, bro! No! 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 No, bro! No, bro! That shit is Mickey. No, he does not need. Whoa! That's sick. That's sick. That's sick. That is sick. That is sick. That's fucking sick. That's gonna break people's necks. Nah, that shit is sick. He can rewind time. Wait, that team up is sick. What does it do with Storm there? Wait, what did it do? What the fuck? That looks insane. Why is that so big? Dude, no, that Hello one is so stupid. You have to burn that low. You have to. Oh, 3 people now? Damn. Oh, this shit about to be some bullshit. What the fuck? Is this a dash? Dash into a heal? If Cloak and Dagger's actually there, what does it do? Puts the circle down? It's just bigger healing. Okay, that's not that crazy. These Moon Knight players aren't gonna use this shit. They're gonna use whatever the other thing. Oh yeah, they're using this shit instead. Yeah, Moon Knight players are gonna use this shit. The Moon Knight players want damage. They don't give a fuck about healing.
Beware,
That's pretty cool. Her Iron Man team up's still there. Okay. The Iron Man team up's actually pretty good. I actually had a kill with it. It actually does a lot of damage. It tracks. It can't miss. It has infinite range as well. Oh my god, is it stun? That move is tracking too, by the way. Wait, did her fucking stun? What the? What? It stuns multiple people and oh, that looks broken. That looks so broken. What? It pulls and it stuns and it. What the fuck? That's your. What? That shit looks so broken. What is this? Oh, she actually has a reason to have this team up now since her bullets are like rapid fire. What is that? What? What am I looking at? Isn't it just like Phoenix passive then, technically? It just explodes.
All systems smash.
He has... Iron Man is meta. Iron Man's gonna be meta. He gets a bubble when he E's now. And the blue life. And he has Gamma Strange. When I Gamma Strange, Gamma team up. It's not Gamma Strange anymore. He has shield on his ult. Oh my god, his ult's actually not ass anymore, probably. Iron Man and oh, what does this do? It's range. The range is insane. What is that range? Wait, why they blur up? Why they blur that? No, go back. What was that? Why they blur it? Who was that? Why they blur that? Why do they blur it?
Partners like the old days.
Oh my fucking. This fucking busted ass team up is back. Oh fuck no. This shit used to one-shot people. It was the most brain dead Spider-Man B&B. You just tether, uppercut, and then fucking that shit was so brain dead. That shit was so brain dead, bro. It took no animation cancels needed, bro. That shit was so brain dead. It's back.
Count again.
Okay. That's not the same, the usual shit? That's the usual, no? What does it do with... What? I don't get the Spider-Man one. I mean, they're all gonna use the Venom one anyway. They're not using the Penny shit. Because if a Spider-Man player usually play with a dive player, they're gonna play with Venom. Like, what? What does she do? Does she heal while in her thingy now? Oh my gosh, she has this passively now. It's passive on her right click now. She doesn't have to activate it. Oh my god. Wait, what is this? Wait, what did it do? I don't know what I was looking at. I missed it. What? What? I don't even know what I just looked at. What? What am I looking at? I don't get it. Shorter cooldowns? Oh, that's not that crazy. What the fuck? Oh, at least it's a knockback and not a pool.
Take a stab.
What does that do? It just knocks away, that's it? What? That looks insane. He can stun you and just one clip your fucking brain. Star-Lord can stun now. Why does Star-Lord need to stun? Oh, that's a long stun too. Why does Star-Lord need a stun? Brain dead dive, bro. I'm not using that shit. I'm using that shit. Never mind. Hold on. Never mind. I'm using that shit. Hold on. Oh shit. But both of them are broken, no? You can stun and then fucking just one clip someone. That's the easiest dive ever. His clip is still 50. Holy shit. Oh, that shit had an 80-second cooldown. What is this? I have one with Cap. Bleed for battle. What did that do? I can go to 12? What?
The night.
I'm not using this Moon Knight, so this shit's ass. I'm not using that Moon Knight team up. I don't know what that fucking was, but I'm not using that Moon Knight team up. What? I can go to 12 now? My spin procs now? Wait. What the fuck?
Shine with me.
Wait. What? It's the dagger and cloak in one now. It's not. It's one button now. Thank God. Oh my God. I used to pray for times like this. Oh my God. I used to pray for times like this. Oh my God. I might have my team back. Oh my God. I used to pray for times like this. I don't have to. Bro, do you know how many times I would die pressing C and then try and do right click and the game would just eat the input for no reason? Because it was 2 steps. I can just press one button, it will always come out now. Why does he have Gambit jump? Oh my God. I used to pray for times like this. Oh my God. I'm so fucking happy, bro. Let's go. Let's fucking go, bro. We're hyped, bro. Let's fucking go. What happens if Cyclops is there? Is it just bigger? It's like a big fucking spinning storm or what? Look at that range. Oh my God. What? What is that team up, bro? That circle's way too big. That shit is way too big. That circle was way too big.
Rock solid.
What? Yes, Spider-Man's uppercut, but they called it the thing.
Rock solid.
What? What? Wait, that procs. Wait, what? Wait, what? I don't even. What? Black Widow?
Charge.
Does that slow? I don't even. What?
All charges stand.
It slows.
Doing this or what?
There's a slow merchant. What the hell? Gumbo chimichangas. What does it do? What does it knock them up? It procs Jubilee's explosion. I don't know what that looks like, but I think it's like I think it blinds them. What the fuck? Was that another page in his book? What? What? Okay. What? Isn't that a buff to the DPS, Deadpool? Ads? Oh, I'm so sorry, bro. I can't snooze anymore. I don't have any snoozes left. Wait, what? Her trap is... Oh, the right click. Oh, she heals from it. Oh my gosh, she has 4 passives. Look at that. She has 4 stacks on her passive. She has 4. Oh my gosh, she still has 1 dash. No. She still has 1 dash. Oh, bro. She has 2 E's. She has 2 E's. She has 2 E's though. And she goes up to 1,200 coins. What's this do? I mean, I guess. Oh, only with that team up does she get 2 E's.
At full potential.
Your damage better be lowered. Why does he have 2? Oh, no. He always had. I was about to say. Oh, I was like, why does he have 2 shifts? What the fuck? I thought he had 2 shifts. I was scared as shit. Bro, what? Both his teamers look so broken. What is that? His E procs Phoenix passive. What the fuck? That shit looks so broken. If anything, he's gonna be doing more damage next patch. What? He gets more damage. Okay, that's not that crazy. That's a pretty small wave. That shit's a baby wave. He has 2 uses of it though. Oh, okay. Oh, that one's way faster. Okay, that one's not that crazy, but you know his second one's gonna be some bullshit. Oh my god, he has gamma squids again. These things do % damage, by the way. Or no, it does more damage the more it's hitting you. Well, I mean, it's the same fucking thing, honestly. I think it did both. The longer it hits you, the more damage it does. It ramps up. What am I looking at? What happened when he shifted? I like how it has a yellow outline under whatever has a team up. What did it do? What does his shift do? I don't get the shift part. It has a buff shield. What do you mean a buff shield? The shield's already immortal. What do you mean? Bro, this shit's getting me dizzy. Get him off the screen, bro. I don't get what the shift did. It lasted longer? It probably did.
Elastic and bam!
Oh, it knocks them up. It slows them too. Didn't it always slow them? Fellas in the bounce house. Okay, his look tame.
Just like Ben.
Never mind. Never mind. Just like Ben, you fucker.
Brains and brawn.
That shit looks annoying, bro. What's next? I don't know. I don't know. Like, I don't know, man. What am I even supposed to say to that? Like, I don't... okay. Oh, what the fuck? Wait, I don't have time to read this shit right now. No, I'm not reading it now. I'm gonna read it later. I can't read this now, bro. They're about to go to the next slide. I'm gonna just run the stream. Read it after. Read it after. I can't read it right now. I don't have time to read it right now. I mean, I know this will only be on the slide for like 10 seconds, and they're gonna skip to the next slide, so there's just no way. It's a whole new. This game is fucking crazy now, bro. I see. Why did BP base health reduce? Okay. Why? Asala got buffed. Base health from 250 to 150, but she has 100 regen shield. What the fuck? Wait, how does the regen shield? Whatever, bro. Because why the fuck is my character at 150 health? Adam has 275. Adam is 275. Oh, we're done? Holy shit, I can finally breathe. Oh my god. Holy shit, I can breathe. Okay, what do we give that? That's a 10 out of 10. That shit blew me out of the fucking water, bro. I give that a 10 out of 10. I give that a 10 out of 10. That shit was crazy, bro. Even if you don't play a character that's meta, you still got changes. I figured it'd just be nurse, but like, nah, bro. I don't even fucking know. Where do I start? Oh man. Yeah, we're doing patch notes now. Yes. Holy shit. That was a fucking 10 out of 10. Oh shit, this game is fucking bonkers, bro. Holy, bro. The amount of content NetEase puts out rivals for Prime Fortnite. I have never seen a game put out this much content this fast ever since Prime Fortnite. Every month, by the way, you get a new character, by the way. And in 1 month, they gave us all these fucking team ups. No wonder Widow wasn't getting any changes. Because I told you guys, there's no way they just don't address Widow for this long. They're working on something big. It's a Kusoge patch. They said it themselves, though. This shit is Kusoge as fuck. This shit won't be balanced. But they said that if something drops and it's not balanced at all, or if something's crazy, they said they're gonna be hot fixing. They're monitoring. They're closely monitoring. They're gonna hot fix if they need to. They said they're gonna hot fix if they have to. I wonder what's Samju's probably losing his shit. Samju's probably losing his shit, bro. I think BP can actually be viable next patch.
Where's Necros, bro? I know he's showing the DPS, bro.
Oh, people already in game?